Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. We have an online infidelity investigation. If you think your spouse is cheating on you, you give us their email address. We trace it back to online dating websites and personal ads. Locates, adoption investigations, asset searches, all kinds of fun stuff. All digital forensics, cell phone forensics. At emailrevealer.com. Okay, we got another great guest. I first tried to book him 2 years ago, and I think he just opened the email just now. Bart Sibrel. You know this guy. He's got a big YouTube channel called Bart Sibrel, Sibrel. You can find his website at www.bartsibrel.com. Bart?
No, just Sibrel.com.
Yeah,
Sibrel.com.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down. Yeah, Sibrel.com. Where you can get an autograph copy. You can buy an autograph copy of these DVDs. You got Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and also Astronauts Gone Wild, which is a little bit of a little wrestling action going on there too. He gets into some fisticuffs with these astronauts. So, Mr. Sibrel, tell us about yourself. Who is Bart Sibrel?
Well, I've been a filmmaker most of my life. Started out in theater and then became a playwright, and then a filmmaker in my early 20s. Been producing TV commercials, music videos, corporate videos, documentaries, things like that. And then in about the mid 80s, when I was running my video production company, I met a gentleman who had produced a show that I had seen 10 years earlier. So I think I was 24, and I was working for a TV producer editing some of his films. And I had seen a show that he had did 10 years earlier when I was 14. He had a news magazine program, and his guest was Bill Casing, who used to work for NASA, who said that the moon landings were fake. And I was always a really big fan of the moon missions. I had a bedroom wall covered with 9x12 color pictures of Apollo 11. I had them up every day of my life from about age 4 to 14. And when I saw this guy on TV, I caught me as kind of an open-minded teenager. It's like, well, anything's possible. Let me take a second look at some of these pictures. And sure enough, the anomalies that he pointed out were there. And it was kind of interesting. Your eyes wide shut. You don't see them unless you're really looking for them. Kind of planted the seed. So 10 years later, I end up doing some film work for the producer of that TV show I'd seen a decade earlier. And I said, do you remember the name of that guy? He says, no, but call the San Francisco office. I did. And they were like 2 days away from deleting all 10-year-old files to make room in their archives. So I almost didn't get in touch with them. And then at the time, I thought, because there's a possibility at that stage that the moon landing were fake, I thought, that could be a dangerous thing to start looking into. So I even called Bill Casing from a payphone and wasn't even sure if he was the real Bill Casing, figuring if they faked the moon mission and he's the guy spearheading the truth coming out, maybe he's taking him and put in an agent pretend to be him so that all the whistleblowers could be caught. So, but about after talking to Bill for about 10, 20 seconds, I had this kind of just grandfatherly, relaxed quality that I knew he was a genuine article. And I spent, I guess, about 6 months pretty much paying myself a salary, doing nothing else except looking into whether or not the moon missions were fraudulent. I discovered many unusual things, such as 2 of the 3 astronauts from the first mission really don't give interviews to the public about how they spent the public's money to do this great, greatest event, achievement of mankind, allegedly. The administrator of NASA, right before he used to put this feather in his cap, resigns days before the first Apollo mission. And the Soviets, who had 500 hours in space for every 100 hours the U.S. spent, never put a man on the moon. They put the first satellite, first animal, the first spacecraft, the first orbit around the Earth, first of 2 spacecrafts at the same time, and they never went to the moon.
Hey, Bart, it was always my impression that the Soviets claimed at the time they faked it. Did they ever come publicly and say we faked it?
No, the only thing that I had heard is an ambassador to the United States made one statement about a week after Apollo 11, and he never made it again, implying that it was fake. It's never been in the official policy of the Soviet Union. A lot of people say, well, surely they could have triangulated with their technology, the Apollo spacecraft and things like that. And I think that's probably true. So what that means is, later on, we have concrete proof that they were fake. So that being the case, and the Soviets knowing about it, it must mean there's something going on behind the scenes. It's like if I had a picture of the president with a prostitute, I could give that away free to the media and ruin him, or I could blackmail him year after year, administration after administration, and that would be a more resourceful use of nation. And that's what the Soviet Union has done. I believe China has probably done that. Japan, Israel, and other advanced countries probably know that the United States faked the moon mission, and they have concrete proof to show that. However, they're using it behind the scenes to negotiate skeletons in each other's closets and things like that. But going back to when I first started investigating this, and shadows intersecting when they should be parallel and so forth, and the Soviets having more missions and the strange behavior of the astronauts, I said there's at least a 1 out of 4 chance that they faked it. Considering this was allegedly the greatest achievement of mankind, and if they did fake it, it could be dangerous, to investigate it. I originally, Ed, turned down the project. I said, I want to have a wife and family someday, so why should I die or risk dying for someone else's folly? And then several years went by, and I started reading the Bible and realizing that, despite your views of God or no God, there is a defining line between good and evil. Surely rape and murder and genocide is evil, and giving a thirsty man water is good. There is a dividing line in there somewhere. And if they did fake the mission and lied to the world and embezzled billions of dollars and murdered people to keep it a secret, that's actually more profound of an event historically than if they had actually gone. So what we have is one of the greatest events in human history is actually the faking of the moon mission out of pride and greed and evil. And so several years went by. I realized I'm going to die anyway. There is right and wrong, and I might as well risk my life to prove it. Because if they didn't go, this is like the cure for cancer that's being hidden under rock. We can't learn from mistakes. If the American government keeps painting over mold, it's going to infest the country. And the only way to overcome this mold is to confess it. You have to admit your mistakes. And that's what John Kennedy did, and why he was one of the most popular presidents of all time. He took responsibility. He admitted when he made mistakes, and his popularity rating was higher virtually than any other president of all time. And if we keep sweeping this under the rug, it's going to bite us. It's going to infest the country, and it's going to bring it down from within. So I said, 1 out of 4 chance. That's a pretty serious possibility. And I then met a person who right now is building rockets for NASA. He's a multimillionaire person who wishes to remain anonymous. And he knows from an engineering point of view that the moon landings could not happen 50 years ago, much less today. I mean, think about it. There's never been in the entire history of the world a technological achievement that once it was achieved, no one was able to repeat it for 50 years. When they flew across the Atlantic, that's like saying Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic in 1927, but 50 years later, no one can do it. But see, that's just not logical. It's like saying they did the atomic bomb, or they did nuclear fusion And I'm sorry, somehow we can't repeat it with 5 decades more advancement in technology. It's completely illogical.
Yeah, especially because at the time they didn't even have like pocket calculators or a fax machine at the time of the moon landing. We had nothing back in those days. I don't think we had cordless drills and cordless screwdrivers. But let me interrupt you for 1 second and ask you a question, because you mentioned people were murdered. Do you have information that people were murdered to cover this up?
Well, I have firsthand eyewitness testimony from hours of interviews I've conducted with relatives of deceased NASA astronauts and employees who have forensic evidence that they were murdered.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
And they asked me not to put this in my films. And so I didn't, because they're pursuing their own investigations and they didn't want me to hinder it or distract people from it. But the fact is, there were people who were murdered, who were NASA employees, who were astronauts. And you can go to my website, Sibrel.com, go to the link YouTube channel, and go down to Conspiracy Theory, Did We Land on the Moon?, which is a film I kind of helped produce, but didn't really entirely produce. And they did some really good investigation into the pool of what you could consider astronauts as well as backup crews. And of about 24 or so people, 4 to 6 of those had fatal accidents within a 24-month period of one another. Now, if there are 24 employees of a McDonald's and 6 of them die within 24 months, the homicide police are going to be all over the place. You know what I mean? So something is not right here. And again, your point is so valid, Ed. A cell phone has 1 million times the computing power than all of NASA's computers when they allegedly went to the moon. And here we are 50 years later, and the farthest a man can travel from the Earth is 1/1000th that they claim to have done with 5 decades older technology on the very first attempt. In fact, in the entire history of aviation, there's never been an airplane or flying machine that worked the first time. Even the rudimentary Wright brothers gasoline engine with that biplane, it took, 20 attempts before it got 20 feet off the ground. And yet they're claiming the most intricate, dangerous, complicated aerospace machine ever constructed worked on the first occasion. The 747, which was built 10 years later with 10 decades more technology, took over 160 engine failures before they could get that fuselage off the ground. And this is just to build an aircraft, millions of which had been built before, not to mention going to another planet with untried equipment. It's so amazing. And the reason why people cannot see the obviousness that the moon landings are fake from that simple logic alone is unless you can point out another one to me, Ed, this is the only conspiracy that is positive. I mean, whoever killed Kennedy, he's still dead. Whether Oswald did it or the Soviets did it or, Nixon did it. And whoever did 9/11, whether it's the Saudis or bin Laden or Cheney, there's still 3,000 people dead. But this is a positive conspiracy. It's like me telling you, Ed, your favorite team there that just won the Super Bowl, they cheated. They put sleeping powder and the other team's Kool-Aid to make them lethargic, and that's how they won. You're ready to punch me in the face. But what if it's true? I've spoken with college professors who said if they saw an Apollo astronaut confess on national TV that it was fake, they would still believe that it was real. Now, if that's not arrogance and pride, I don't know what is. And the Bible says that pride blinds you from seeing the truth.
Yeah, that's true. Because even myself, I don't want to bring myself to come out and say it didn't really happen. You still want to give them the benefit of the doubt, But I'll tell you this:
the benefit of the doubt as long as possible.
I'll tell you this though. In my office back in New York, in the late 80s and 90s, I had this big photograph of the moon landing. One of the astronauts with the flag. It's an iconic photo. And everyone who came in would always go and look up at it and look for those shadows anomalies that they'd always heard of. So I guess everybody has at least a question in the back of their mind, but when you think about it, it's just impossible.
Well, again, the easiest proof that it did not happen is simply technology does not go backwards. If they could go to the moon on the first attempt with 1960s equipment, men would have been on Mars 25 years ago. You see that? Technology does not go backwards. For example, all the blueprints, all the telemetry, everything to prove that they really went to the moon, NASA deliberately destroyed. That is proof that they didn't go. For example, imagine Bill Gates spending $150 billion to build the first computer. And once he did and achieved it, he threw it all into the furnace and all the blueprints on how to make it. That would never happen. In fact, technology that they should have done that with, the atomic bomb, they treasured that. So NASA basically said all the proof, all the schematics, all the engineering designs, they deliberately destroyed. Now, if you really went to the moon, you would never destroy it. The only reason you would destroy it is if you faked it and the schematics could be later proven by an engineer that they didn't have enough fuel, they didn't have enough battery power, or they didn't have enough computing power to do the calculations. That's why you would destroy it. So the fact that they did destroy all the blueprints is proof that they didn't go, because if they really went, they would have never done that.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
Yeah, what is their explanation for the battery power? Because you think back then they must have, the batteries alone would have weighed tons, and the amount of food and water they would have had to bring for 3 days. What is their explanation for all that?
Magic. It's like the magic bullet. My wife's cell phone. I've been married 3 years almost, and I've known her for another 2.5. And this is like five years I've known her. I keep telling her over and over and over again, 1,000,000 times, sorry, my darling, charge your cell phone. It's right. So frustrating. I can't find you, when I want to talk to you. So she uses it for Facebook and whatever else. And the battery just drains all the time. And it's a brand new phone with the latest technology and latest battery technology. They're claiming that in this tin can lunar module, they sat there in 250 degree Fahrenheit heat for 3 days and got the temperature down to 72 degrees with a bank of essentially liquid acid car batteries. Now, if I take my big Cadillac and go out to the desert at 100 degrees and turn off the engine and turn on the air conditioning, how long do you think that's going to work? 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And yet, they make these extraordinary claims. And that's why they destroyed the schematics, because a detective who's an engineer could figure that out. That's why we have Von Braun's documents. We bought these $10,000 a pop from these people's estates of their widows. And he said, going to the moon in a single rocket is an impossibility because it would have to weigh 800,000 tons and be taller than the Empire State Building and weigh 10 times the amount of the Queen Mary. And the one they claim to have gone in the Saturn V only weighed 2,500 tons. So he recanted on his math by almost 30,000%. So how could someone who's that off mathematically ever get us to the moon in the first place? Or otherwise he's lying. And then he said you had to first build a space station and from there ferry the fuel to leave the Earth's gravity. From there you could go to the moon. And of course the space station was only officially finished 2 or 3 years ago.
Hey, what about those people who say that the space station is fake too? That they say they're really not up there and they're using hairspray for the hair and all. Where do you land on that?
Well, when Bill Casey first went on the Oprah show and she was first getting started and he said the moon landings were fake, immediately, the CIA or whatever their propaganda media is who faked the moon landing said, oh, and you also believe the Earth is flat. And now that it's coming out again through a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, which you can get at Sibrel.com, and we have footage of them faking video right in front of your eyes with the third track of audio of the CIA telling them how to do it. Then they try to throw you in the same boat as people who think the Earth is flat. The Earth is obviously a sphere for a number of reasons, and it's not even worth debating. But they try to say that all space missions are fake. No, the only space missions that are fake that I'm aware of are the ones in which a man claims to have left Earth orbit, because they'd have to go through the Van Allen radiation belt. And there's all sorts of documents from the late 50s that say it is anywhere from 5 to 100 times a lethal dose. And then you have NASA admitting several times on camera recently that the radiation belt is dangerous and the technology to go through it has yet to be invented. They said that word for word on camera by Kelly Smith of the Orion mission about 3 years ago. He said it's a dangerous field of radiation. We have to go through it to go to the moon, and we have yet to develop that technology. Oops. So I call up. I say, hey, I'm a journalist. Can I speak with Kelly Smith? No. I say, hey, aboard that Orion spacecraft, you had 2 different Geiger counters. Can I please have those readings? And they say that information is classified. Now get this, Ed. Is the temperature of the sun classified? Is the amount of helium in Jupiter's atmosphere, is that classified?
Good.
So why would how much radiation is in the radiation belt is simply a part of nature be classified? There's no reason unless it would prove a possibility for the astronauts to go through, which is what they admitted anyway. So the fact that the radiation is classified is proof again that they didn't go to the moon, because if they told you, it would prove that the moon missions were impossible.
Well, isn't it possible, though, that even though it's like a lot of radiation, that you know how they say, well, you're not supposed to take radiation, but you can still survive it? Is it possible they could have went through and survived it and maybe gotten cancer down? No. Go to Sibrel.com, go to the Conspiracy Corner link, go to the article, Did We Really Walk on the Moon 48 years ago on the first attempt? And you'll see the documents by Van Allen himself, printed in Scientific American magazine, in which he said it was anywhere from 5 to 100 times a lethal dose. It's a minimum of 500% more than a lethal dose, a minimum. Okay. So he says he said the only way you could go to the moon, he says it in writing, is if you launched a rocket at the North or South Pole where there's an opening in the radiation. Now, if the space shuttle is blowing up, Challenger blows up when it gets below 45 degrees or 38 degrees, whatever it was, you think you can launch something from the North or South Pole? You can't. It would destroy the rocket hardware. You wouldn't be able to do it. Okay. And besides that, you have to launch near the equator in order to get the proper orbit, and then from there have escape velocity. Now, I'll be honest with you. The Van Allen belt is beyond my technical capabilities. It's beyond my understanding. I'm never going to understand it. But I had a guy emailing me this week and says, oh, yeah, I want to debate Sibrel because I know all about the Van Allen. What do the other sides say about it? How do they explain away that we got through the Van Allen belt? The other side.
Well, all I can say is I don't know whether O.J. Simpson was guilty or not, but his own attorneys after the fact suggested that he was. And yet, no matter what evidence was presented, there was always some, intricate excuse as to why he was innocent anyway. And these poor diehard people who don't want to give up that the moon landings are great and astronauts are gods have made a religion out of the moon missions. I mean, people during the launch were looking up and saying, my God. That's right. It is their God. Look at Van Allen. They named the belts after him. Look at his own writing, which is in the article published from a national magazine. And in the late 50s, he said it was 5 to 100 times a lethal dose. And the only way to go to the moon would be to launch from the North or South Pole, which they did not do. That's the man who the radiation belts are named after. And he tells you that it's not possible right there. What more information do you need?
I say it's so true what you're saying, how we looked, because we're about the same age, you and me. I'm 55, it was like hero worship back, especially around that time. There was a new mission every year, going on all the time in the new front page of the paper. Everybody was drinking Tang. Remember Tang? We were drinking that.
I drink a gallon a day of that stuff.
Right.
Can you imagine that?
It was this god awful stuff. It tasted like crap, and it was supposed to be healthy. Was it supposed to be healthy? It was sugar water.
It did have vitamin C in it, but it also had a lot of sugar in it too.
Oh my God.
That's like saying wine is good for you because of the grape juice, which is half true. But you could also drink grape juice without the alcohol. You know what I mean? But in any case, here's the thing, Ed. I get emails. Okay, I have protection from the FBI. Because I receive death threats from people who say, I wish they could watch me and my family burn alive before their eyes. Now, all I'm saying is that the government lied at least on one occasion. Now, the fact that there's this fanaticism that someone saying such a simple thing would receive such a vulgar and violent death threats is proof itself that these people who believe in the moon missions to that degree are irrational and crazy. And how can a crazy, irrational person perceive the truth?
But don't you think maybe you turn some people off because of the way you confront the astronauts in their home and stuff like that? Like I think that's a little abrasive.
To be quite honest, I've had second thoughts about the methodology that I used. It's one of those things, hindsight is 20/20. The way that I looked at it, again, forgive me if O.J. Simpson is innocent, but let's presume that he was guilty. So let's presume O.J. Simpson was guilty. He got away with murdering people violently with a knife, and he's walking around the golf course, one day enjoying freedom when he shouldn't. Does he have a right to be confronted with a camera in his face and say, I think you really did it? Would you swear to God that you didn't? If he's guilty, he absolutely does have a right to be confronted like that. And I know for a fact, because of this footage that we uncovered, that the astronauts are 100% guilty, 100% liars, 100% treasonous to the rest of the citizens. That being the case, they have the right, in my mind, to be confronted for their sin, for their embezzlement of money, and for their treason. Benedict Arnold had the right to be confronted, and so do these lying astronauts. Now, that's my point of view then, and there's a little bit of a point of view now about that. Seeing how I'm, proclaiming somewhat through my little adventures of Christianity, let me tell everybody I'm a work in progress. One of the best T-shirts I ever saw was from a minister in my church that said "under construction." And I think about my mortality every day. I think about God every day. I think about, am I going to make it every day? I think about repenting of my sin every day. I am not saying I'm better than these astronauts. All I'm saying is that I believe they won't make it into eternal life if they don't confess it. And I've given them every opportunity publicly and privately to do that. Now, would I do it again? Maybe not. Did I wake up that day, and plan on calling Buzz Aldrin a coward, a liar, and a thief? No, he didn't wake up that day planning on punching me. We'd already known each other. He had already acknowledged to me certain things that were correct about my accusations. And so just one of those moments that happened. I feel like I should have sent the guy a box of cigars for all the free publicity, But the fact is, he is a liar.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
He is a thief for taking money for something he didn't do, and he's afraid, coward, of the truth. It's like there's a Hollywood celebrity I heard about. I won't mention his name, but a very famous actor, and on his deathbed in his 80s, he wouldn't allow anyone in the hospital room because he didn't look good. Mm. And all this is about appearances. This is why Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins had the sense that Buzz Aldrin did not have and does not have, to not go around milking crime, beyond what they, felt that they was the minimum that they had to do. These people were blackmailed. Probably their families were threatened, and they gave into it. But it's just a bully. All they had to do is at that initial press conference to say, look, the CIA threatened to kill my family if I didn't go along with this. The moon landings are fake. Do you think the CIA would dare touch their family after that? No. But they gave in to a bully, And the thing is, if you stand up to a bully, they run for the shadows like a cockroach. Unfortunately, they gave in. And that's why Neil Armstrong very rarely gave interviews about it. That's why Michael Collins did the same. Unfortunately, Neil Armstrong seemed to have gone from a good person to not so good of a person. The best that he did on the 25th anniversary, which is about 24 years ago, is he left this cryptic, message that you see at the end of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon when he was in the White House and students were going through, and he said, perhaps someday you'll be able to remove one of truth's protective layers. That's a pretty strange thing to say about going to the moon, unless, of course, it's fake, and which it is. And unfortunately, America's going to have to eat humble pie in order to recover from their wounds. It's either cut off the leg that's gangrene, or we're going to lose the whole body. And that's what we've done. We've dug this deep hole. We keep line upon lie upon lie upon lie. We claim we're a light on the hill to the rest of the world. And we lied about the greatest alleged accomplishment of mankind. It's pathetic. And I'm accused of not being a patriot for revealing this. But the fact is, it was those who faked it who are not the patriots. Government reform is extremely patriotic.
You had a lot of access to these astronauts, in their home and stuff like that. Did anybody off the record ever slip anything to you?
I've been told numerous things off the record, and I can tell you that one or more of the astronauts has confirmed to me that I'm correct. Now, they won't say that on the record, but that's just the way that it is. And one astronaut, James Irwin from Apollo 15, I believe was very close to making a public statement that the moon missions were fake. In fact, he contacted the previous leading investigator before I hit the scene, Bill Casey, who wrote a book, We Never Went to the Moon. And you can imagine my surprise if I say, hey, Ed, hold on, I'm getting a call, and it's Buzz Aldrin calling me, rather than me trying to track him down, right? Mm. And so in August of 1991, James Irwin becomes a born-again Christian, and he calls up Bill Casey, the leading investigator at that time, and says they need to have a serious conversation about the moon missions and his accusations in the book. He says, call me at this number 3 days from now. And on that day, the astronaut had a fatal heart attack.
Oh, my God. You're kidding me. I never heard that story. That's a great story, man.
Well, it's the truth. And so, somebody's phone was being monitored, the astronauts or Bill Casey's or whatever. And, the great thing is we were financed by this, millionaire patriot. He was like the John Hancock. We each had little nicknames for each other that were based on the founding fathers. This John Hancock, who is right now building rockets for NASA, okay? Figure out who that might be. This anonymous person financed $1 million to produce these films to show to the world that the moon missions are fake because he is a patriot of the United States of America. And he said what they did was wrong, what the CIA did was wrong, what the Nixon administration did was wrong. Because do you think Congress voted on whether to fake the moon missions or not? Of course not. And what that means, Ed, is that Congress and the Senate are not controlling the country like they constitutionally should. We have a higher office than that. Remember Schumer warning Trump, the intelligence agencies have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. Yeah, because they record your whole life. And if you make one mistake, they got it recorded and they blackmail you with it. And of course, everyone makes mistakes. You know what I mean? So it's like the CIA is running the country, not Congress, not the Senate, because they're the ones who faked the moon missions. They're the ones who killed Kennedy, and they're probably the ones who did 9/11 or their buddies did.
And like you said,
know what I mean?
They keep people quiet through blackmail. It's a good time to take a short
bribery first choice, right. Blackmail second choice.
It's a good time to take a commercial break with Bart Sibrel. You can find his website at Sibrel.com, Sibrel.com. You get an autographed copy of these videos. Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon and Astronauts Gone Wild. They're both excellent, too. I watched them both. Very, very excellent stuff. We'll be right back with more of Bart's.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
And now a word from our sponsors. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. But we also do all kinds of different services for you. An online dating service investigation. It's called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites. If you think your ex-husband or something is addicted to prescription medication, or involved in an extreme online pornography addiction, we can produce a report for you that you can use in court. Adoption investigations. If you want to locate your birth parents or your birth child you gave away for adoption, we can do adoption investigations for you. Asset searches for you. Locate bank accounts, hidden assets, hidden properties, hidden income, all different kinds of services in the asset search investigation. Email tracing. If you need to locate or identify somebody from just an email address, we can do an email trace investigation for you, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Don't forget, this show is brought to you by pscoco.com. Phoebe Sod is an independent curator with the Cocoa Exchange. The Cocoa Exchange is formerly known as Dove Chocolate Discoveries, and they make the finest silky smooth chocolate because the products start with the best cocoa beans, which are tested for quality and flavor by expert technicians. The Cocoa Exchange offers not just premium chocolates, but anything from sauces and spices to brownie and cake mixes, and even coffee and martini mixes. If you wish to treat yourself or someone you love to a sweet and tasty gift, then the Cocoa Exchange is the brand for you. So you go to pscoco.com, you click on the Shop Now button. You can see all their beautiful chocolates. You can order it right now tonight. It could be in your mailbox in a couple of days. Or if you want to get into the chocolate business, you want to be a chocolatier just like Phoebe Sod, click the Contact Us button, and you can learn how to get your own website, go into the cocoa chocolate business, and sell chocolate and make a little bit of money there. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Bart Sibrel, Sibrel.com, Sibrel. If you just Google Bart Sibrel, it comes up all over the place. Excellent documentaries. Funny thing happened on the way to the moon, and astronauts gone wild. You can order a copy, go to Sibrel.com. Now, Bart, you mentioned before embezzlement, right? And it always struck me that, that stupid go-kart. They said those little go-karts that they had cost $60 million. Is that correct?
Well, in today's dollars, the film was produced in 2001. I think that'd probably be closer to about $180 million now. Somewhere, maybe $150 million, something by now. So imagine spending $150 million to build an automobile that has about 2/3 fewer parts than a Jeep from World War I or World War II. That's pretty amazing. It's just one of those pork barrel things. What they do, a lot of what the CIA does is internal money laundering.
Right.
They have these quote budgets where they can do whatever they want. And with that, they bought up basically Google, YouTube, Facebook. They have these Paul Zuckerberg, whoever has the face on it, who don't really own them anymore. The reason they do that is when you sign up for Yahoo, whatever, it says you agree to the terms, one of which is for the proprietor, permission to scan your emails, which is another word for reading them, and see how you gave them permission, and they own the hard drives. They don't need a warrant really to do any of your communications. They bought AT&T and all this black budgets. Now, before then, during the time of the Nixon administration, he had allegedly, certain money for Vietnam allowed to go into Cambodia or spend money there. So they would take the buggy, $60 million, $100 million, and they would give that, spend, maybe $500,000 producing the moon buggy, and then spend the rest of the $149,500,000 on some other project that they really wanted to do.
Is there any explanation of how they got that buggy up there? Because what was it, inside that doorway, or was it attached outside? What was the deal?
Yeah, it allegedly, collapsed and unfolded like a camping cup on the sides of a module. And they never changed the engines or anything to account for the additional weight, because the earlier missions to the moon had the engines designed in a certain way. When they added that weight, it made it lopsided, but they never changed the engines or the fuel or anything. So, it's another one of the little fantasy stories that it's this magical equipment. And I wish we could prove how we did it, but we destroyed all the technology and all the blueprints.
I tell you, I'm really enjoying this. I love the little jokes, the collapsible camping cup. I'm really enjoying this. Thank you very much. Now, one more question I always had in my own head. I've never seen it in a documentary anywhere, but they're out there driving around in this buggy. They must have got dust all over their boots and their suits and on their, even on the top of their heads. Then, was there any mechanism to wash themselves off before they got back in the capsule? Because that dust would raise up in gravity. It'd be everywhere.
Well, not that I'm aware of. In fact, I asked Eugene Cernan when I was at his house if we could borrow a picture that he claimed had moon dust in the frame of the picture, something like that. I said, we'll give you, a $1,000 cash deposit if we could go analyze these dust particles and prove that you're right. He refused to do it. A creator, you may know, if they do a search under fake moon rock or simply read the article, we have the link in there and the information. A curator in the Netherlands, after watching a funny thing happen on the way to the moon several years ago, decided to open a hermetically sealed, never to be opened box of moon rock that allegedly Neil Armstrong personally picked up off the surface, personally brought back, and personally delivered the exact same rock to the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Now, 35, 40 years later, they get curious, they open it up, they put it on a microscope, and it's petrified wood. Now, to my knowledge, there are no trees growing on the moon. And so what they did is they used petrified wood to give it this kind of outer world look. And so you have a moon rock that Neil Armstrong personally picked up, personally gave to somebody. They put it under a microscope, and it's a fake. Now, why doesn't any reporter on Earth ask, well, if the moon rocks are fake, what about the moon missions? I mean, hello. And then you have CNN. They do this story about how the space shuttle goes higher than any manned mission other than going to the moon. And they say the radiation belts surrounding the Earth as they approach them from more than 600 miles away are more dangerous than previously believed. Now, the Apollo astronauts allegedly went through them twice, going to the moon and back. So how could someone 600 miles away from them know more about them than the Apollo astronauts? Because they said in 1994, they're more dangerous than previously believed. So now someone 600 miles away from them knows more scientific data about them than people who were in them. That's not possible unless they were not ever in them, did not go to the moon. They were on the rocket. They orbited the Earth. And that's what this footage we uncovered, which you can watch, and a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, proves. We have them faking a shot of pretending to be halfway to the moon. If they're pretending to be halfway, it means they cannot go halfway. All the equipment was identical. So if Apollo 11 can't leave Earth orbit with their equipment, none of them did. We would have the CIA on there. They left the microphone on for the first part of the transmission. You hear NASA saying the TV picture looks great. Then there's 4 seconds of dead air, and you hear a third party who's crystal clear say, talk. Basically, he was only 200 or 300 miles in Earth orbit, so he heard the question right away from NASA and could respond right away. But if he did, it would give away the fact that he was closer to Earth than he was supposed to be. Because with that old equipment and going out halfway to the moon and coming back, there should have been at least a 4-second delay. So we have the CIA on a stopwatch telling Neil Armstrong not to speak until he hears through his earpiece, talk. And that's on the tape, too. And when NASA re-released, this footage that we have to prove that, well, we had it all along, even though at the beginning of the reel it says do not show to the public, they delete the CIA audio of prompting them when to speak after 4 seconds. So if that talk meant nothing, why did NASA delete it when they re-released the footage? You see what I'm saying? Why did they claim it was publicly available all the time when at the beginning of it says do not show to the public? I mean, it's a complete contradiction.
Explain to me a couple of things. One is, what you keep saying CIA. How do you know it's CIA and not some other intelligence agency and more secret than the CIA like that?
It could be. It could have been the NRO, could have been the NSA, it could have been, but it's probably the CIA. Okay. They were the most powerful, centralized. They had the most experience with microphones and camera tricks and things like that. And so that's just who I default to. It was somebody in the U.S. government. It was probably them or some other agency similar to them.
Now, the other question is, explain to me, because you're talking about how they faked an image halfway a film. How did they fake it?
Well, you can watch this, and a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, which you can watch on YouTube. And basically, they had one window that faced the Earth, allegedly. And according to the astronauts, it was completely filled up with this older, bulkier, big TV camera. For example, Imagine your TV screen completely black with maybe a blue tennis ball sized Earth in the middle of it, occupying maybe 10, 15% with black all around it. Now, that's allegedly the Earth floating in space as seen from the window halfway to the moon. And in order to do that, you'd have to put the lens of the camera to the window of the spacecraft, presuming one faced the Earth, which is another issue. And then you'd see this tiny Earth far away. The point is to prove to the audience that they were halfway to the moon. We have the unedited version, which no one saw until I uncovered it, when the camera is actually at the back of the spacecraft. They turned out all the lights. They blocked the windows from sunlight coming through, all of which they talk about how they're faking it because they thought these conversations would be edited out. And even though it said live, on CBS, we hear them say this is for playback later, meaning that the picture was edited. And so basically they have the inside of the spacecraft black. They have these 2 or 3 spacecrafts coupled together. So they're as far back from the window as they can get. And they have a circular window outside of which is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. And it makes it look like the Earth is floating in space. They even put a little crescent piece of black material in front of the window to create the Terminator line between night and day. But we have the outtakes of them fiddling with the window. We have the outtakes of when one of the astronauts' arm gets in front of the window, proving that it was not up against the glass like they claimed. It was back away. And they're creating this fake shot of being halfway to the moon. And when I saw this, I'm like,
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
They're pretending to be halfway. And I must have said, oh my God, about 100 times in 2 minutes. They're faking being halfway to the moon. Now, there's no question that that's what they're doing. In fact, detractors of my movie agree that that is what they're doing. They agree that that is them faking being halfway to the moon. People who claim we went to the moon agree that this footage I uncovered is the astronauts faking being halfway. Now, their reason is they were just practicing. They were just rehearsing, and that's why they're faking being halfway to the moon. But the fact is, each mission cost about $1 million a minute, and every ounce probably cost $10 million to get off the ground. So the last thing you would do is to bring this extra equipment to fake being halfway to the moon. If you wanted to practice, you practice with the real Earth outside the window, right? The real Earth, being halfway to the moon. You wouldn't have to stage being halfway to the moon. You would just practice with the real Earth halfway to the moon. So we have people who agree that this footage is fake, and yet they still claim you went to the moon. If you really went to the moon, you wouldn't have to fake any of it. And if you're faking being halfway, it means you cannot go halfway. You cannot leave Earth orbit. And now here we are with 5 decades more advanced computers and rockets, and the farthest a manned astronaut can go today with 5 decades more technology is 1/1000th of the distance they claim to have gone half a century ago on the first attempt with 1/millionth of computing power as a cell phone.
Yeah. Some people will even say that beautiful photography you see, there was on cover of Time magazine and stuff that was taken on the moon, the lighting and all. Okay, that was faked, but we really went anyway. I just wanted nice pictures, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. They acknowledge the pictures are fake. They acknowledge the footage I uncovered is fake, but somehow, desperately, they want to believe we went to the moon. Okay, yeah, the team, we bribed the referees and we put Kool-Aid at the other team's stuff, but we still won honestly. They're so desperate. They don't want to give up the glory of science, the glory of mankind's accomplishments or whatever. It's really amazing. It's like the Titanic had in writing, the day or two before they left, the ship that God himself could not sink. Yeah. And it was simply frozen water. You know what I mean? What we have here is the greatest accomplishment of mankind, allegedly, putting a man on the moon. And what a surprise, like the Titanic, like the Tower of Babel. It was never finished. And mankind, who, a lot of people say, well, they wouldn't be so deplorable as to fake such an important historical event. Okay, In the last 100 years, more people have killed each other than in the entire history of the world in the last 100 years. And we have genocide. We have baby rape. We have,
Well, Jack Parsons was a Satanist openly at the time. It was, not deplorable enough for you.
And in a world where millions of people are killed for their religion in the last 100 years, and where babies are raped, in that world, people don't think they would cheat on an exam or cheat to win a Nobel Prize or whatever. They don't think they would lie about a scientific accomplishment. It's been done over and over again. Nobel laureates have been caught in plagiarism and in falsifying data and having to give back their awards. And here we are again. I mean, it's so simple. Again, if they could go to the moon on the first attempt with 1960s technology, they would have been on Mars 25 years ago.
What about the theory that the
technology does not go backwards?
The theory that Stanley Kubrick was involved in faking the footage. Have you found anything on that?
Well, they had to have somebody in charge of faking the footage. They could either hire the general of the media department at the Pentagon and have great security and amateur results, or they could hire the best filmmaker on the planet and worry about security later. And that had to be their choice. They had to go with realistic images. And so what we had is Stanley Kubrick, who had already gotten in with the U.S. military when he did Dr. Strangelove and got access to a B-52 bomber for that filming. And then NASA gives him the a lens that they built, which can film his next film, Barry Lyndon, under natural light candlelight, which no lens had been able to do that before. And then during the time leading right up to Apollo, what film is he making? A film about going to the moon. 2001: A Space Odyssey, in my opinion, is still the best science fiction film ever made, scientifically, aesthetically, because of the realism of the photography in that film. And that's who I would have picked to done it. And sure enough, right after he does that, he fears flying ever. He won't visit America ever. And he leaves these cryptic clues. Like in The Shining, you have the little red rum boy stand up from a carpet pattern that looks exactly like, Cape Canaveral. And he has on a shirt that says Apollo 11. Mm. And then you have him stipulate in his contract that Eyes Wide Shut.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
Just like looking at a picture of a man on the moon and not seeing the truth, Eyes Wide Shut, he insisted that it opened on the 30th anniversary of the launch of Apollo 11. Now, what is he trying to say here? Now, I've talked to his wife, and I've corresponded with his daughter, and they say, Stanley Kubrick wouldn't be involved in such a despicable thing, just like Neil Armstrong's children say, and so forth. The fact is that Neil Armstrong participated in threat of, killing his children, so he, in his mind, he was doing it to protect them. And Stanley Kubrick didn't see it as an evil thing. He saw it as this great chess accomplishment. He was this great chess player. And he saw it as what a great filmmaker I can be if I can make a film that's so realistic people won't know that it's fake. He took it as a challenge.
Yeah, Kubrick was so afraid that he had a moat around his house. Like a moat.
I'm not sure about that one.
No, really? No, I'm almost convinced that's true, that he had a moat around his house. I'll look it up again. But
I can tell you a lot of these people involved in faking the moon landings died right at or very close to age 70, including him. And I tried so hard through Scotland Yard, through the Bournemouth coroner's office to get information about his death. What was the autopsy? What was the toxicology? What was his last meal? What was the last day of his life like? And I couldn't get any answers. And when his widow was interviewed the following day of his death, she said out of her mouth, there were no suspicious circumstances regarding his death. When no one asked her. That's like getting pulled over for speeding and say, I didn't have anything to do with that bank robbery back there, officer.
Right. Hey, now what about you watched that James Bond movie, right? And they're hoaxing the moon landing. They show the astronauts walking in slow motion. Now, is besides the film footage we have of watching these astronauts jumping around on the moon, is there any other indication of what it would look like to be bouncing around on the moon in low gravity? Why would it be slow motion? Wouldn't they be going twice as fast?
Well, if you look at a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, I just double the speed of these TV images of them floating around. I'm a filmmaker. I'm looking to see whether it's faked or not. And to me, the black and white images in slow motion look very convincing. It looks like they're kind of floating around. But when you double the speed, you see they're only getting off the ground about an inch. Now, the moon is about 1/4 the size of the Earth, so it's at least 1/4 gravity. Plus, it doesn't have a molten core, so they estimate 1/6 gravity. I think it's probably more like 1/12. They should be able to leap 3, 4, 5 feet off the ground, which they only, did about a third of that in later missions when they figured a way to do it. But it's super obvious in the first missions that they're using slow motion. Now, when National Geographic did a special about my film to prove that it wasn't true, and they showed the slow motion and the speed doubled, they zoomed in deliberately to not show the distance between the astronauts' feet and the ground. It's amazing. They deliberately covered up the proof that it was slow motion while they were trying to prove that it wasn't. In fact, they did such an inept job. They had this guy go out to a desert at night with a spotlight and have 2 or 3 people stand next to one another, and one guy in an astronaut suit say, "Look, here we are simulating the moon, and the astronaut and the shadows do intersect. Therefore, Bart Sibrel is wrong." But that's exactly what proves me right. Why didn't they just go to the desert during the day and use the sun, which is what they had on the moon, and the shadows would have never intersected? So the fact that they used a spotlight and electrical light is what caused the intersection was what actually proved me right. And they said the exact opposite while people were looking at it with their eyes wide shut. They said, look, a spotlight causes these intersecting shadows, which is what we see on the moon, which is why it was real, which is exactly why it was fake.
You're so true. Hey, we only got a couple of minutes, man. The show's over, Bart. Man, I tell you, Bart Sibrel, I really enjoyed this. What do you want to leave us with?
All I can say is go to Sibrel.com or go to the link at the end or program, wherever it is, put a link to that article. Read why. If you really want to know the truth, you got to have an open mind. You got to be willing to be wrong. If you're not willing to be wrong, you can't learn anything. I had to admit, I went from the greatest fan of the moon missions to saying it's possible they faked it to finally, after 3.5 years into a 5-year project, I pop in the tape, don't show to the public. They're faking it in front of my eyes. There's the CIA talking to them. I had to admit it. They did not go. And when you look at the logic that they claim they did something 50 years ago that cannot be repeated today by any nation on Earth, and their estimate to go to the moon is 20 years from now, when it only took them 8 years to go to the moon with half a century older technology, that's proof itself that it didn't happen then because it can't happen now.
Bart, thank you so much, man. The time went so fast. As soon as you get that book done, hit me up. We'll put you right on the air, okay, man?
All right.
Thank you, brother. And I'll send you that MP4, okay?
All right.
Thank you. Good night. All right. Then we had Bart Sibrel. You go to Sibrel.com, Sibrel, and the link he's talking about is to thesleuthjournal.com. And the article is called, Did They Really Walk on the Moon 48 Years Ago on the Very First Attempt? And it's like a 15,000-word article. It's a very, 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 very serious article with a lot of content on it. He's very proud of it, too. In fact, he says this is going to be like the basis for the book. Bart Sibrel, you can find him Astronauts Gone Wild. There's a lot of good stuff. He gets into some fisticuffs with these astronauts, you know? I wish he let me ask more questions. I really enjoyed it. And maybe I can get him to come back for 2 hours to do another 2-hour show. Astronauts Gone Wild is funny. You find it on YouTube. Also, too, you can buy it over at Sibrel.com. And then the other one is Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. Fascinating topic. I love this. And like I said, I used to have that photo on my wall in my office, and everybody, when they saw it, they'd walk right up to it. This is before the internet. You know, before you could just Google something and find it right away. For people to see an enlarged photo of the guy, the flag on the moon, they look for the shadows and stuff. If you enjoyed the show, check out OppermanReport.com, where we have our members section. Offering a special deal for you right now. You get 13 months for $60. Otherwise, you go to OppermanReport.com. You pay the full price for 12 months. You don't get the deal. Okay. That's how things work around here. Coming up, I got, Malinda Choma coming up after this. She's going to be telling us her satanic ritual abuse, information. It's funny how he didn't respond too well when I mentioned Jack Parsons. I wonder what he knows about that. He doesn't want to talk about it. I wanted to ask him, too, if he ever experienced any danger himself, if he ever had any threats or violence against himself, or any attempts maybe on his life. So that's Sibrel.com, and that article, I'll have it I'll link in the description, is thesleuthjournal.com. And if people say I have a lisp now, I apologize. If I got a lisp and I'm talking with a lisp, whatever it is, my dentures aren't in, I apologize for this. I do the best I can. I do this little show here. OppermanReport.com is our members section. I just did it. And also, too, if you want to advertise on the Opperman Report, we got great deals, great rates for you. Contact me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com. We're playing all over Utah. We're coming up in Florida. And I'm going to be working on Seattle soon, too. And now a word from our sponsors. Don't forget, this show is brought to you by PSCoco.com. Phoebe Sod is an independent curator with the Cocoa Exchange. The Cocoa Exchange is formerly known as Dove Chocolate Discoveries, and they make the finest silky smooth chocolate because the products start with the best cocoa beans, which are tested for quality and flavor by expert technicians. The Cocoa Exchange offers not just premium chocolates, but anything from sauces and spices to brownie and cake mixes, and even coffee and martini mixes. If you wish to treat yourself or someone you love to a sweet and tasty gift, then the Cocoa Exchange is the brand for you. So you go to pscoco.com, you click on the Shop Now button. You can see all their beautiful chocolates. You can order it right now tonight. It could be in your mailbox in a couple of days. Or if you want to get into the chocolate business, you want to be a chocolatier just like Phoebe Sod, click the Contact Us button and you can learn how to get your own website, go into the cocoa chocolate business and sell chocolate and make a little bit of money there. I want to welcome our newest sponsor, SubashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India. So you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring research network, customer care, press release, content writing, and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. But we also do all kinds of different services for you. An online dating service investigation. It's called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites. If you think your ex-husband or something is addicted to prescription medication, or involved in an extreme online pornography addiction, we can produce a report for you that you can use in court.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
Adoption investigations. If you want to locate your birth parents or your birth child you gave away for adoption, we can do adoption investigations for you. Asset searches for you. Locate bank accounts, hidden assets, hidden properties, hidden income, all different kinds of services in the asset search investigation. Email tracing. If you need to locate or identify somebody from just an email address, we can do an email trace investigation for you, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. You can have your ad played here at oppermanreport.com. Every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank Sean Duff at strawmanmusic.com. He's an excellent musician. And I also want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests, who's an excellent author at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and the show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com, get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Also, all different kinds of investigative services you can find there. Locates, infidelity investigations, cell phone forensics, computer forensics, a hacked email account investigation. If you think your email account's hacked and someone's reading it, when you get an ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, something like that, reading your emails, we can monitor your email account and see if any third parties, unauthorized third parties are reading your emails at emailrevealer.com. Okay. We got some show coming up for you here. Okay. We have Malinda Choma. Now, I met Malinda Choma through her sister, Samantha Spiegel. We interviewed Samantha Spiegel quite a bit a while ago, close to a year we're getting with Samantha Spiegel. You might recall her. It's up in the members section, that interview. Samantha Spiegel was the woman who, as a child, was a student in a school, and John Mark Carr was her student teacher's aide in this school. And you might recall that John Mark Carr is the guy who confessed to murdering John Benet Ramsey. Okay, really, the whole bizarre, strange story. It takes hours and hours to get into. Well, Malinda Choma is the sister of Samantha Spiegel, and she has her own story, which we're going to be getting into here in great detail. And this is what a story. Yeah, so we have Malinda Choma. Malinda, are you there?
Hi.
How you been?
Pretty good.
Okay, tell us about yourself. Who is Malinda Choma? If I meet you we're out in front of our kids' school, I say, hey, how are you? I'm Ed Opperman. And you say, I'm Malinda Choma. Tell me about yourself.
Well, that's a loaded question. So, I would probably just say, I'm a mother. I enjoy working. I am in the middle of hopefully trying to get a book done, and I'm a little weird. So there I am.
And Melinda's a very beautiful woman, too. You should see her pictures. Very gorgeous. And her sister, too, Samantha Spiegel, also another beautiful woman. So I get to talk to a beautiful girl for an hour here. I can't complain, right? Okay. Now, I guess what brings it to the show is that you had an unusual childhood. Am I correct?
I did. Okay. Yes, very much so.
Well, give us, because now you don't do a lot of interviews. You're not interviewed all the time. So give us an idea. But you're writing in the midst of writing a book about your experiences as a childhood, growing up in a very unusual circumstances. So give us an idea. What happened in your childhood?
Okay. It's pretty complicated. Just kind of how I even got to where I was at. So I am adopted. That's kind of the whole start of it, of course. And without kind of giving too much away, Samantha also is adopted. We have another sister whose name is also Samantha. She, however, prefers to stay a little bit more out of the way. And birth mother, is a prostitute, and she's deceased. And she adopted all three of us out and found my adoptive dad. From what I've collected from my adoption, that we've had to put a lot of pieces together because there's a lot of holes in it. And in the process of discovering who I am, I did find my biological father a couple years ago, and I found out that there was cash exchanged in my adoption. And so my adoptive dad was a big time con artist, ran fake businesses, collecting people's money as, quote, investments, and then, bankruptcy, couldn't give people their money back when really there was kind of most of the time no physical business going on. And I have a brother who was also adopted, and he and I, at the hands of my father, experienced very severe traumatic abuse. I can get into that a little bit.
Well, let me stop there.
That's kind of the gist of how I came to be where I'm at today.
Let's get a little bit more background first. Now, you got Samantha Spiegel, the other Samantha that lives in your town where you live now, and you're...
No,
Malinda.
she lives in the South. My sister here is my one with my adopted family, but she's my sister. There's no getting around it.
Out of the three adopted kids, though, what's the age? Who's the oldest? Who's the youngest?
Okay. The first Samantha is, I believe, 33. Me and Malinda, I'm 31. And then Samantha Spiegel, 27.
Okay. You're 31. Okay. All right. And you're employed now, right?
Yes.
Self-employed. Okay. Do you want to say what you do?
No.
Okay. Self-employed. Malinda.
We're good. Yeah.
Choma. Okay. Now, you said that your mother was a prostitute and that money changed hands in order for her to give up her one of her children, you, in this case, up for adoption. Do we know how much money?
No, I only heard from my dad that gave me up when I found him. His wife told me that my birth mother, the one that gave me up for adoption, went to my biological father's home after my adoption took place and offered him what she described as a bundle of cash. I don't know. We didn't really get into it anymore because I have no further contact with them.
That's not uncommon. When kids find their adopted fathers, they usually either they won't contact them at all, or they'll have one contact and then they discontinue. So it had to be a significant amount of cash for her to be willing to give up a handful to.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. Yes.
And so your mother found the people to adopt you to and she received financial gain from that. And I know from talking to you last time and about Samantha Spiegel. Samantha Spiegel was adopted into the Spiegel catalog family. Am I correct?
Yes.
So that's the Spiegel family, big shot family, the Spiegel catalog. Okay. It's an iconic, ton of money going on over there. So do we know if she received money in that adoption process?
I don't believe hand to hand cash happened in that one. No.
Okay,
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and what about the other sister? What do we know about that?
She was adopted. However, biological family adopted her, and she was left in her crib, abandoned in her crib.
Okay. And that's because your mother was a prostitute. She had a lot of drugs too and alcohol?
Yes.
Okay. And is your mother alive today?
No.
She's passed. Okay.
She deceased 2010.
And your father, your stepfather, or your adopted father, your adopted father, you said you called him a con man. Now, was he very successful at his crimes?
Yes, he was. And towards the end of his life, when I was 10, things had started to really unravel. He was virtually completely broke. And there was a lot of people angry with him.
Okay. Is he alive today?
Yeah. No.
No, he's gone too now. Okay. So,
yeah.
Out of all the adoptive parents, how many are surviving or are still alive?
The oldest sister lost both of hers, I believe, within 2 years of each other. I have my adoptive mom who left my adoptive dad when I was 2, after she witnessed him breaking our family dog's leg.
Mm-hmm.
And Samantha Spiegel's mother is still alive and her father is deceased.
Right. That's another thing that's very common too in these abusive relationships where especially because when it's the person who's being abused will have sympathy for pets and they want to become vet techs and around dogs and pets and stuff like that. And the abuser will see this and they'll abuse their pets, in order to get at that person that they're manipulating it and abusing. I'm going
yes. My mom currently runs a nonprofit animal rescue.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. Okay. That's all. That all fits the pattern. Now, so give us an idea of, okay, your mother was a prostitute. She basically sells you to this family. The father's a con man. What about the mother? She was abused by the father, right?
I would say yes. Physically, no, but absolutely psychologically and emotionally.
Okay. And you had a brother through this is your adopted brother, right? Or is it biological?
Mm-hmm.
With this
adopted brother.
Okay, so they adopted a son and a daughter.
Yes.
And they abused both of you.
Yes, just our father. Yeah.
The father abused both of you. Okay, can you describe to us exactly what you went through as a child?
A little bit, I can. I'm going to try to get the right words. I'll start off easy and then it gets pretty complicated. So for punishment, if my brother would do something wrong or my dad was just angry with him, whatever the case would be, he would hang him upside down by his ankles in the garage and leave me there, not hung, to watch my brother struggle. And my dad would then walk away and then come back, what felt like for me hours, but I'm sure it was just several minutes. And then if I wouldn't eat his dinner, which was pretty common because I wasn't comfortable around him, I've been restrained to tables and chairs and left all night, and would force me to eat it. And then, okay.
Well, give me an idea. What age were you? How old were you and how old was your brother when your brother was hanging upside down in the basement?
Oh my goodness. 4, 5.
So you were both around 4 or 5 years old.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
Yeah, we are 11 months apart.
And what about the incidents you described with the dinner table being tied to the table and stuff like that, tied to the chair?
The earliest memory I have of that is probably 3 or 4.
Really? 3 or 4 years old? Huh? Boy, I tell you,
Yeah.
It can be frustrating feeding your kids at 3 or 4 years old, man. They don't want to eat. That happens. But, my God, just to go that kind of extreme, it's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, to leave a child there tied for the whole night and then send me to school the next morning. And I have, virtually no recollection of that following day at school, of course,
And when this was going on, did you ever tell a teacher or any friends or anything like that?
No, because I was just having this conversation the other night. When that's, it's a very complicated, I think, psychological and emotional situation. But you have this person who, tells you they love you. They're your father. And then these things happen. It messes with your mind. And so I was under the impression that every kid went through that, I didn't, I had no idea that what I was experiencing would be considered child abuse.
Yeah, I know. It's heartbreaking. My own daughter growing up, later on we found out that some of her little friends were going through horrors at home, and you think, boy, the kids over here, we're cutting the pumpkin open, we're doing these different things, and everything's fine, blowing out birthday candles. And then when they grow up, you find out they were living in a house of horrors.
Yeah. And, his house was huge. I mean, huge. It was beautiful and a high class neighborhood. We were always dressed nice. No one would have any idea what was going on. And I know one thing that happened to my brother, and I can't believe the neighbors wouldn't call the police. My brother didn't want to play 2 sports back to back one day, and my dad duct taped him to a chair and left him outside in the rain, and he was screaming, and a neighbor came over and got him out and knocked on my dad's front door, and I just can't believe the police weren't called. But there was other times that police were there. My brother actually told me he remembers several occasions of seeing police, but because everything looked so good from the outside, there was nothing they could really go on. And I know there was one instance he left me in his car in the summer and walked off. I don't know where he went. And the police found me, and I don't know if my dad was ticketed, but he certainly was not arrested. So it's just one of those things where everything from the outside truly looked perfect.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I'm a lot older than you. I'm 55 years old. And when I was growing up, my God, it was a nightmare. It's insanity going on with all the neighbors in our house. But, I'm thinking 25 years ago, 30 years ago, it wasn't that crazy. Things were starting to wise up, and people had their eye open for this kind of thing. Now, since then, have you and your brother received any therapy for this?
My brother, no. And me, no. However, I did have other therapy as a teenager, but unrelated to any of this, because the book and talking to you is truly one of the first times I've spoken aloud, minus a few select people I've entrusted with my story. Mm. I've kept it extremely quiet out of fear that, retribution, people not believing me or just thinking I'm like some crazy girl making up all these stories. And, none of those are true.
It's so important. Saying things out loud, is so important. It's so therapeutic. I would really encourage you to find other outlets for this, besides the occasional radio show, like every 9 months or so. And you're writing a book about this. We're going to have a book come out, and when the book comes out, we'll have you back. We'll get into this a little bit more because already the time's going so fast. Now, what about now with your sister Samantha? She describes, obviously, her abuse was a little bit different because, and she was also had an abusive childhood because she describes all kinds of statutory rape going on in her life. That's just such bizarre, in so many different ways. Did you have that? You and your brother, any kind of sexual abuse?
Yes, me.
And that was with the adopted father?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, yeah. And the last time we talked to you, described that your parents would have these parties at the house.
Mm-hmm. And so, again, it was just my dad. I was every other week. And I woke up to a party going on. And it was in his bar. And when I approached the bar, there was a bunch of steps leading down to it. And I saw, I'm going to be honest, for so many years, I brushed this off as a dream because it was so unreal to my young eyes. And, but when I saw everyone had on black capes with the hood over them. I have, after that, I have no memory of what happened the rest of that night. And that is a common theme. When I was talking to Keegan Lester during our first recorded session, my dad used to tell me I would sleepwalk all the time. And when he passed away, suddenly my sleepwalking incidents never happened again. Mm. And after talking to my brother, I was able to piece a couple of things together, and he would tell me that my dad would wake him up and bring him outside into our backyard, and we had a citrus orchard, and it went up really high up in the hills. And my brother would remember standing outside and him and my dad watching me walk down the orchard, in my pajamas. And he would go, "Oh, look, Malinda's sleepwalking." And he remembers a couple of very similar incidents. And when I told Keegan Lester about it, I had never thought about it. And he's a really good guy to be talked to because he can kind of get in there and figure out what's going on. And he said, it sounds to him like my dad could have been using some sort of drug like LSD or something.
Well, what about, did you guys have a little ritual, bedtime stories and milk and cookies, and where they would feed you something at night before you went to bed?
I don't honestly.
I don't remember.
I don't know. As I've gotten older, more memories have started to come back, and some which I'll probably never verbalize. Mm. But they slowly started to leak in, but there's still so many holes from my childhood.
Yeah, that's so true. I was just remembering in my own life, and this is something from my 20s. There was an incident in a car with my friend and his girlfriend, and I remember the incident, And it wasn't until just recently that I says, oh my God, now I realize what all that was about, you know? It just, things suddenly make sense to you or come to your revelation.
Yes. Yes.
Now, what other indications do you have that do you think this might have been a satanic, besides these robes, like you mentioned, and walking into the citrus field? Were your parents religious? Did they talk about the Bible? Did you go to church?
No, my dad was what he describes as an extreme atheist. And later in life, I acquired some of his jewelry, and I found a lot of Freemason jewelry. I don't know what that means, but tons of Freemason jewelry. I still have some of it, but I've gotten rid of a lot of it. I still have his cufflinks with, the G and the, yeah. And so I asked my mom if she had any memory of him being in the Freemasons, and she said that she did not think or know that he was a part of anything like that. But we were always surrounded by his people, and like he would hire these horrible babysitters who would lock me in dark bathrooms and they made me play I was 3, 4 at the time. So it was like hell to me. They would make me play Bloody Mary. And these are, women, like grown women, locking a little girl in a dark bathroom and not letting her out until she's done doing whatever she's supposed to do in there.
What is Bloody Mary? I've never heard of that game.
Oh, you've never heard of it? You're supposed to look into a mirror and say Bloody Mary 3 times, and then the demon or spirit or whatever of this woman appears.
Really? And wait, and this was multiple babysitters how you play this game?
That was one babysitter, and then we had others who would talk about like sex constantly, and it was just horrible. It was horrible. They were just, the one that locked me in the bathroom though was like the worst, because I hated when it was her time to come over.
And what age were you with these babysitters?
All the way up until, he died when I was 10. So this is 10 years, the first 10 years of my life.
First 10 years of your life. Okay. And after he was dead, did things change? As your childhood got better?
As far as not being abused, absolutely. But then things went downhill for me. Started acting out, obviously. A lot of self-destruction. I went to 4 different high schools. I could not keep it together. I was just all over the place, hurting myself, not, cutting myself or anything like that, but like almost trying to push myself to the limit, like just every single day. It was horrible. It was horrible. I was a horrible student. Like I was out of control.
What's very interesting too is both you and I've only met you and Samantha Spiegel, and both very, very intelligent women. I'd say incredible. And now, the other thing too is, I was going to ask you, it slipped my mind, but, your mother, when you did track down your mother, the prostitute, did you ask her about any of this stuff?
No. And I don't want to give too much away, but meeting her was really traumatic. And I can just say this part. We ended up meeting one of her pimps.
Right.
And he asked, my mother, oh, are these your girls? And it was too much for me to bear, just emotionally. I was like, what? A pimp knows about me? That's horrible, you know? I was 19.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
When I met her, and it was over a 3-day span, and there was things that happened on that 3 days that I had to be reminded of by my older sister. And luckily she was able to capture photographic evidence. Otherwise, I don't think I would believe her when she told me some of these things. Like, that's how traumatic I was. I almost completely forgot what happened on that trip.
Now, the older sister, did she have, because we know that Samantha had a bizarre childhood. We know your childhood was hell. What about the other Samantha, the older sister, 33-year-old one? What was her childhood?
Yeah. You know, she was adopted by her biological grandparents. Right. And honestly, hers was as normal as I could probably imagine a childhood being. You know, I think besides her parents that, you know, adopted her, but still her family, it was her grandparents. You know, they died 2 years apart, and then she was young, like 14. And so that messed her up. But other than that, she kind of lucked out between the two of us.
Yeah. Okay, this is a good time to take a commercial break. We're here with Malinda Choma, and she's telling us about the experience she had as a childhood, being adopted. And by the way, people got to go back and look at the other shows I've done about this whole adoption process, which is rife for abuse, just like this, and 100 times worse. The kind of stuff I've reported on going on with this adoption process. This needs a complete and utter overhaul and some kind of oversight into this process here. It's just crazy. But we'll be back with more with our guest, Malinda Choma, right after these messages. Her book's going to be coming out. And who's writing the book? Keegan? What's his name?
Keegan Lester.
Keegan Lester. Now, how'd you find him?
He is actually my cousin from my stepdad's family.
Okay.
He's amazing.
We'll be right back with more of Malinda Choma right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. We also do all kinds of different services for you. An online dating service investigation. It's called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites. If you think your ex-husband or something is addicted to prescription medication, or involved in an extreme online pornography addiction, we can produce a report for you that you can use in court. Adoption investigations. If you want to locate your birth parents or your birth child you gave away for adoption, we can do adoption investigations for you. Asset searches for you. Locate bank accounts, hidden assets, hidden properties, hidden income, all different kinds of services in the asset search investigation. Email tracing. If you need to locate or identify somebody from just an email address, we can do an email trace investigation for you, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. You can have your ad played here at oppermanreport.com. Every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report members section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank Sean Duff at strawmanmusic.com. He's an excellent musician. And I also want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests, who's an excellent author at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And we're here with Malinda Choma, just telling us about her horrific childhood. Now, Malinda, you mentioned Keegan Lester is writing this book with you, and he's your cousin?
Yes.
So you had other cousins. Did any of the cousins witness this abuse going on when you were kids?
Now, he is from my stepdad's family, who my mom later married in life, and he's absolutely amazing. So this is his nephew.
Okay, gotcha. And the third sister, you said she came out fine, and then Samantha, you can check out her story, and it's in the members section. It's a whole story for a whole another day, a whole another thing.
Right.
God. God, I tell you. Now, since you started talking about this, I interviewed your sister, and I interviewed you off the air. We talked off the air. We took a statement from you off the air. And then you and Keegan are writing this book. Since then, you've had some problems, some visits to your house. Can you tell us about that?
I can. So I was supposed to talk to Keegan on the phone, a phone interview. And the night before that interview was supposed to happen, I was sleeping, and a man, fully covered, I couldn't see anything, and he did have gloves on, came into my bedroom and locked himself in there with me. I did black out, and I was in and out, and I remembered him laughing at me. And when that was all said and done, I discovered that there was blood sprayed in like 4 different rooms of my house. There is a police report, and the last I talked to the officer handling it, it was closed, and there's never been an arrest made. So that would be
describe how the
traumatic.
blood was sprayed in the rooms. It was just like, what could it be? I kind of understand his arm around.
I'm making an educated guess.
Okay.
I don't know because I've not been told. It's just my assumption, and I could be wrong. My assumption is that it is not human blood.
Okay, that's the question. That was my next question. Was it animal, human?
Okay.
Please, what did they tell you? Did they test the blood?
They did blood samples,
Right.
but I never got word on the blood. The only thing I did find out was the officer called me the same day of my report, and he just did a quick field test on some of the samples, and he called to confirm that it was in fact blood.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. How would he find out that quickly? That's bizarre. I guess one of those blood alcohol kind of tests, you can throw it in there,
Yeah, I mean, it was no DNA, test. It was just if it's blood or not, basically. Yeah.
That's interesting.
But the way the blood was, it couldn't have been from a cut. It was in too weird of angles. None of it was on the floor, just on the wall.
So you think it was in a spray bottle and the guy sprayed it on the walls?
That part, I don't even know.
Okay.
I mean, that sounds like a reasonable as it could be, but yeah, it sounds like a logical.
When you get into these areas, reason goes out the window. Now, your other sister, the one who had a good childhood, had a similar experience.
Yes. Well, it's my sister from my adoptive mom and my stepdad. It is their biological child.
Okay.
but I was raised with her. She's my best friend, and we only live about, 20 minutes away from each other. And yes, 6 months after mine, she had a very similar experience. Do you want me to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, real quick, because we got about 20 minutes for the whole rest of the show. So,
okay. Just essentially, her home was broken into. It was not home. Blood sprayed everywhere. Police took, bloody mop out of there, bloody paper towels. There was blood outside, inside, and then oil all over her counter, which we can't figure out where that came from. And they were found and arrested, thankfully.
Oh, really?
And yes, that's the only thing that's been good out of that. And so she's in the middle of writing her victim impact statement, and it's due before the month is over.
Okay, well, wait a second. This is good that we have some people we can talk to. Now, these two are the people two of them were arrested. What's their age?
I think just one was arrested, as far as I know, and they knew her.
Oh, it's someone they know.
Yeah.
Okay, what was their motive for doing this? Do we know that?
No, we do not know.
They just went crazy? Were they on drugs?
No. I mean, she was out of town for a week, and they broke in through her living room window. And then, because I was there with her when she got back from town, and when we walked in, we just couldn't believe what we were looking at. And the only difference between those two is that nothing was taken from my home, and she only had one thing that was taken, and he pled guilty to petty larceny, but we've still got no answers on the blood for either one of our homes.
You gotta get insistent with these cops, especially that case. There'll be a detective assigned to that other case, and you can get them on the phone and make them tell you. You gotta push this stuff. Now, you mentioned that the man who was in your home with the mask on, you thought that his voice was an African-American voice. Was this guy arrested? Was he African-American?
No, he's not African-American. No.
Okay. All right. And we have no idea what his motive was for this.
No idea.
Okay. Did you know this man?
No.
Would he know where you live?
Yes.
The one who was arrested knows where you live, would know where you live.
Yes.
What about Samantha over there in San Francisco? Has she had any kind of similar? I know she lives in a high security building, though, right?
She does. Yeah. She's behind gates, and you need an access code to get in.
Right.
So fortunately, she's not had anything like that. But she's going through her own legal battles right now that I can't talk about because it's still in the process.
Oh, something where she's in trouble, or there's someone else got a problem?
No, she's not in trouble.
Okay, that's good. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to hear. Okay. Good old Samantha. Okay. All right. Now, is there anything in this story that I've left out that I haven't asked you?
I guess just to make things a little bit more interesting, because it gets even weirder.
Okay.
We'll just say this, and if we want to get technical here, I have 4 dads. Okay. Which is a very interesting thing. And you said something in the opening that I heard, and I just wanted to say real quick, my email was hacked and my phone was hacked at the time of my break-in.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
Well, my email account, I was getting emails letting me know that I had been compromised. I could not access my account, and they kept sending me emails telling me that if I didn't change my information, that they were going to shut it down. So I have no further access to my email. So I had to get another email. And my phone was hacked. I dealt with it through Apple, and I received a case number, and they were hacked into my iCloud.
Okay. Let's start with the email account. That was a Gmail account?
It was Yahoo, and I was part of that big breach.
Okay.
Back in maybe 14, 15. And I just completely lost access to my whole email. So that was pretty terrible. And
with the phone, what was going on with the phone that came to the conclusion that your phone was hacked?
I feel like there was just too many weird things going on with my phone that wasn't making sense. I would walk in front of electronics, and that electronic would react to my phone, or my phone would react to that electronic.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
And it was just acting really strange, and it was like there was too many coincidences going on. And I found out first that I had some apps on my phone that I didn't put on there, and that's kind of where it all started. And then I was able to get the hackers out, thankfully.
And what were the apps?
The phone tracking apps.
Okay. And do you have any suspects in mind who might have done that?
No.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Ever any occasion where someone else would be holding your phone and say, "Hey, can I borrow your phone and use your phone?"
I mean, certainly that's happened.
Okay. All right. So you had the incident with your phone being hacked and the email account, and then of course these incidents here with the home break-ins. So now, do you believe this is related to you coming public with these stories and the Freemasons and stuff?
I'm torn on it. I want to say I'm in denial and say, no, it's just random. But I don't, I can't say that everything's just random, because there's been other things that have happened that also have police reports attached to them. And just, it's been pretty relentless for the last couple of years.
I believe when we talked, but also too, you're going through some divorce litigation, right?
I am.
Could any of this be related to that?
Absolutely not. My divorce is fairly new.
Okay.
And we're actually not divorced. We are separated since July of 17. So it's pretty fresh.
Okay. And now, with your sister's childhood was equally bizarre as yours, but even more so in many ways, because she had this contact with John Marcar when she was like 9 years old, and then she went and contacted him, and they developed a friendship over the phone. He tried to recruit her into a cult. Did she have any of these similar satanic issues that you believe you had?
Not specifically by her parents, no. And one other thing about John Mark Carr, he taught at her exclusive private school. Yeah.
He was a teacher's aide there when she was like 9 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she contacted him though, when she was like 19 or 18. And then he started trying to get her to recruit little girls, like John Benet Ramsey type little girls, to be in a cult that he would lead.
Yes, I did see her interview years ago on the Today Show, and I have to say, I almost fainted because it was one just, it's a wild story, and then to see your sister on national TV, you're like, whoa,
Well, did you ever listen to the interview? Did you ever listen to the interview that we did?
I did not.
I gotta send it to you. I'll send it to you right after the show. We should have put it on. I should have sent it to you before. I figured they did. I'll send it to you right after the show. It's just a lot in this story that's is exclusive to this interview that no one's heard before. It's just one thing after another with her,
It is.
Because she was also communicating with these death row inmates.
Yes.
The one from Polyclass. And a lot of people believe that whole Polyclass story, there's a lot more involved there than that's in the public. And
yes, there's it always goes deeper.
Right. And I believe even if you Google Polyclass and John Mark Carr, there's even a third connection between the two of them. So, there's a
wow.
There's a lot of bizarre stuff throughout this whole thing. But we're with Malinda Choma, and her book's going to be. When do you think the book will be out?
We just don't. We don't know. We are really trying. We are trying because between all my issues, there's still some people alive that we need to talk about. We just, because my brother and I don't communicate anymore. So at first I had full permission to use his name and everything. And so that completely changed. And then with my biological father, that was an absolute nightmare. Talking to him and getting the DNA test. His wife is just pure evil. I'll just say that. So it's really been a nightmare trying to get this done.
And what about the father who was the Freemason, the adopted father who was a Freemason? Have you guys done any investigation into him, like a really thorough investigation, like business history and newspaper records and things like that, besides just a cursory Google, like a Nexus Lexus type of searches?
I believe somewhere there is paperwork of all of his phony businesses, but I don't know where. I don't know whose hands it's in or if it's even still around to this day.
What about like a newspaper archives and stuff? Have you looked through that?
I have not. No. He lived kind of all over Southern California, so that would be a pretty difficult task to track down all of that, I feel like. And we've done a lot of tracking down. We found a lot of people already, and I think we're kind of a little burnt out on our own little investigation.
I hear you. But I say, like, I
know
his case isn't that old though. It's only about 25 years old. So there would be like LexisNexis, docu-searches. There would be a lot of stuff available on him that you wouldn't even have to get into like microfilm and go down to the library. So there would be a lot there, which would be interesting to find out this guy's associations, who he was friends with, who he was in cahoots with. His ex-wife, she's still alive, you said, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. And that's my mom, to this day. Yeah.
And does she say, he was friends with this guy, he was friends with that guy? Does she have a list of names he was friends with and associated with?
Yeah. And I remember his associates, but kind of out of a little bit of fear, I don't know, how comfortable I would be at all saying their names out loud.
No, don't you don't have to say their names, but I'm just saying that have you looked into their backgrounds though and seen if there's any kind of nefarious activities?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I would go with all this. But Malinda Choma, we're just about out of time. How do you want to leave us? And do you want to make yourself available for people to contact you if they know anything about this story?
Oh, yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah. I guess what I'd like to leave it on is the main reason we want to get the book done and get it out there is to possibly help other adopted children who maybe have had a not easy time. And I think just to finally get, our story out there, because we are, weird. A lot of people don't understand us. And I think it'd be really good to clear the air and let people understand us a little bit more.
And how can people contact you?
They can contact me via Facebook.
Facebook. So it's Malinda Choma, MALINDA CHOMA. Just look for the prettiest one, because there's a couple of them, but it's the prettiest one, and that's the one we're talking to today. Malinda, thank you so much. If anything comes up, shoot me an email, and we'll get you right back on the air, okay?
Sounds great.
And later on today, I'm going to send you that interview with Samantha.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, there you got Malinda Choma. She's the biological sister of Samantha Spiegel. And you got to go back into the members section and check out that whole Samantha Spiegel thing. By the way, Samantha Spiegel is another gorgeous one. Both are incredibly, the genes in that family. I never saw the third one. I'd like to get a picture of her. These two are beautiful. The Samantha Spiegel story is just fascinating because it's like she talks about herself this statutory rape throughout her whole life, with all these teachers, and then John Marcar getting involved, and she had to get a restraining order against him, and then came out in the public, and then she was victimized by celebrities on top of that, which was targeted and victimized by them. Just fascinating stuff, Samantha Spiegel. So thank you so much, Malinda Choma. Okay, and check her out and keep an eye out for that book coming out with Malinda Choma. One more thing we were talking to about the adoption process and the adoption situation is I've done shows in the past. If you just Google Ed Opperman adoption, we've done several shows on the gaping holes in the adoption process in this country. And secondary adoptions are even worse, especially with these overseas adoptions where parents in this country obtain these children from overseas with sometimes very little paperwork whatsoever. And they get them here in this country, and then they can't handle them, and they try to rehome these kids. And they basically just market them on the internet to be given away to the highest bidder, whoever comes along. And in that case, there's even less paperwork. They just sign over a power of attorney. You go to a bank, you sign a power of attorney. I give this other person power of attorney over my child to take them to the doctor and take them to school. And that's it. And then they're gone forever. No one knows what happens to these kids. There's no oversight. There's no follow-up or investigation or monitoring whatsoever. And it's just a horrific situation what we're doing with adoptions in this country. It really is the most precious commodity we have in this country. And we just treat them like even less than pets, because anyway, if you enjoyed this show, check out OppermanReport.com. We have more in the member section. We have that Samantha Spiegel show, who was the girlfriend of John Marcar, had to get a restraining order against him. That's in our member section at OppermanReport.com. I can give you a discount if you contact me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com. I'll give you 13 months for $60. That's a little money. Coming. And now a word from our sponsors. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. We also do all kinds of different services for you. An online dating service investigation. It's called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites. If you think your ex-husband or something is addicted to prescription medication, or involved in an extreme online pornography addiction, we can produce a report for you that you can use in court. Hidden properties, hidden income, all different kinds of services in the asset search investigation. Email tracing. If you need to locate or identify somebody from just an email address, we can do an email trace investigation for you. And all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. I want to welcome a newest sponsor, SubashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank Sean Duff at strawmanmusic.com. He's an excellent musician. And I also want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests, who's an excellent author at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities. Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.